Is it good?
Valve's Steam Machine is probably the most anticipated gaming PC of all time. I would argue, alongside the Steam Deck, one of the most important. But that doesn't mean that our last 2 weeks with it have been all good.
Oh, they
There
had
are
it
the
for 2
highlights,
weeks?
like the unbelievably polished experience of SteamOS, not to mention perfect integration with your home media setup. But there's also been the lower lights. Performance in the latest titles being a big one, alongside some hard truths.
The cyberpunk
It cost
there.
more than we hoped, and Valve confirmed they feel the same way. But if you can stomach the upfront investment, Valve's GameCube is yet another massive step on their now decade-plus journey of saving gamers from the closed ecosystems that demand pricey subscriptions. And it is hands down the best solution that I've ever seen to solving the inconvenience of PC gaming on the couch. It's not the biggest or the baddest, but that 1-2 punch is why the Steam Machine is so damn exciting. It combines the strengths of PC gaming with the conveniences of console gaming, and all in a nearly silent cube that's about half the size of a real console. But with this kind of hype, can Valve possibly hope to live up to gamers' expectations?
That shit
If we're
is
being realistic,
expensive!
probably not. But I still love the Steam Machine for what it is today, and I'm really excited about what it means for the future of gaming. And I'm also excited, okay, but actually this time, to tell you about this companion product from our sponsor, Dbrand. Their robot sent over this companion cube case for the Steam Machine. We'll look at it in a bit more detail later, but pre-orders are live now, so go to shortlinus.com to reserve yours. I mean, even if you don't want a Steam Machine, this thing would look so good on your shelf. Back to the
I
Steam
did play
Machine, though.
Portal. I did.
I need this for B-roll. We're on a tight schedule, baby.
Okay, that makes sense. We unboxed and explored
Actually,
the setup of the Steam
the
Machine
box
over on
is
Short
very
Circuit this
small.
morning,
It's
and we
just
gave
like
our
a
in-depth
cube.
thoughts on the controller last month. So
I
we're going to be
expected it to be
laser-focused
bigger.
on the experience of the Steam Machine itself. Right out of the gate, if you're a Steam Deck or a big picture user, you're going to feel right at home. The Steam Machine comes with SteamOS pre-installed, Valve's Linux-based operating system that they've spent over 10 years optimizing for gaming. Why did it take so long? Well, because most games still don't support Linux natively. But thanks to Proton, a translation layer that allows Windows games to run on Linux, we found that almost any game made for Windows runs surprisingly well on SteamOS. No command line, no driver conflicts, just press the button and play your game. It's been
That's actually sick that they managed to do that. Like, because that's really hard. Like, and I feel like the good thing about this machine also is that it doesn't have like subscriptions. Like, doesn't every console you have to pay for the online? Isn't that stupid? Like, this feels like something so outdated. You're already paying for your fucking internet. And it's kind of like, why? Also, there is no such thing as exclusives. You know? Yeah, I don't know. Marco, I don't know. Because I find, of course, okay, how do I put this? I do have access of all kinds of consoles and all kinds of games that can be out there, okay? And personally, for someone my taste, while there are games that I can like that are made, that are console exclusive, I'll be honest with you guys, console exclusives, I would not give up being able to play PC games for any kind of exclusive in any console ever. I find that the games made for PC, they're overall superior than, and there's so many like different quantity that no matter how good exclusive for any console is, it's just not worth giving up playing games on the PC. Even if GTA 6 is released, I still think that does not tip the scales. It's not close. There is just so many games you can play on PC.
been one of the Steam Deck's greatest strengths, and that remains true here. And even if
it just feels like no matter how many games any console releases, there's always going to be more for PC. Always. Every time.
somehow you don't like SteamOS, well, great news. Valve takes a very open approach to their hardware. Or should I say, your hardware, you know? The way it should be. So the Steam Machine allows you to install any OS you want, even Windows. It's just that if you did so, you would lose out on some of its best features, like a personal favorite of mine, the ability to suspend your software and resume at the push of a button, just like a console. Seriously, thank you, Valve. Okay, we did find that there were some times that resuming a game would take a little longer than we'd like, but most of the time it was really quick. I'm talking like 5 seconds, which is a huge edge over booting up your PC, loading your launcher, and starting a game. We did notice that sometimes the SteamOS UI would become laggy while a game is suspended, but realistically, we're dealing with pre-release software here, and with how much Valve has refined SteamOS on the deck over the last few years, which is much less powerful hardware, I can say confidently that they're going to get that sorted. The other big one for me is HDMI CEC. It doesn't have the best marketing behind it, and it doesn't have a sexy name. In fact, most people don't even really think about CEC, because when it's working properly, you literally aren't supposed to even notice it. But it is hugely important to the living room experience, especially if you have multiple devices. CEC, if you're not familiar, is a protocol that's built into the HDMI standard that allows your various media devices to communicate with and even control each other without running
Center for Disease Control?
The most common uses for it are allowing your soundbar volume to be controlled by your TV remote, or having your Android media box and AV receiver power each other on and off in sync. Now, most PCs straight up do not support it. This is both a hardware and a software problem, and there's no hint of a solution on the horizon. So achieving any kind of seamless operation involves like janky IR receiver boxes and or complicated home theater automations. Well, Valve hated that, so they built their own software and custom motherboard for the Steam Machine that, from our experience, just plain works. You press the Steam controller button, it turns on everything, selects the right inputs, and bingo bango bongo, seconds later you are gaming exactly where you left off. But there's more to a good gaming machine than just living room integration.
Okay, I also saw some people saying in chat that this is not worth it, and I assume that a lot of those people saying that in chat, they are people who already have a gaming PC. And personally, yes, if you already have a gaming PC that runs everything, you know, I can clearly see that not being worth it. But the question is, would it be worth it if somebody wants to get into PC gaming, though, instead of getting into console gaming? That, I feel like it makes it a lot more complicated calculation. Because, well, he didn't talk about the prices. Let's not talk about the prices yet. Let's just keep watching.
As Microsoft so painfully learned.
Go to Internet Explorer.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
And the Steam Machine's raw gaming hotspot leaves a fair bit to be desired, unfortunately. To be clear, it's not terrible. Valve chose a semi-custom 6-core Zen 4 CPU with 16 gigs of DDR5 memory rated to 5600 megatransfers per second, alongside a semi-custom GPU with 8 gigs of dedicated VRAM. So that's more CPU performance and a lot more RAM than the current crop of mainstream gaming consoles. But the current crop of gaming consoles is 6 years old now. And if we look closely at the specs for these chips, they look more semi than custom, with a strong resemblance to laptop chips from 2023. Now, according to Valve, that's not a problem for most buyers. The Steam Machine should outperform approximately 70% of the gaming PCs that are out there in the wild. And if the Steam Deck is anything to go by, developers will squeeze blood from a stone optimizing for a popular hardware config like this one. But with all of that said, I still feel pretty strongly that these are not the kinds of parts that I would expect in a 4K gaming machine, even with the asterisk of FSR upscaling. But I could be wrong, right? So let's take a look at the numbers. Right out of the gate, the Linux port of Shadow of the Tomb Raider absolutely crushed Valve's target, hitting over 120 FPS at 4K. Not bad, but that is an 8-year-old game, and sadly, the rest of our suite ended up sitting with average frame rates between 40 to 50 FPS.
Cyberpunk is kind of
fairness
disappointing.
to Valve, some of these games were probably running at settings that are a little ambitious for the humble Steam machine.
Okay, hold on. Because I know that Cyberpunk runs on the Nintendo Switch, right? But I assume it's not on Ultra. Right? So what's I don't know what's the equivalent that they should have tested though. At 480p? Because I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I have a very fucking sick PC, and I can run Cyberpunk on Ultra preset on 4K, but I cannot stream without lag. So for streaming, that just does not work. But that's a lot, you know. That's just a lot. I would say that Cyberpunk is probably one of the heaviest games. Eno. The thing about Eno is that Eno is not like visually as demanding as Cyberpunk, but Eno has a lot of like calculations. One of those German games that there is a lot of calculations for things to do. It's not surprising to me that it's also very heavy.
And you could absolutely turn Cyberpunk, for instance, down a little bit and get a more fluid experience, but that wasn't the case for all of them. Doom the Dark Ages, for instance, was already cranked nearly as low as it could go. This whole situation feels like a completely self-inflicted wound. Like if Valve had never said 4K gaming at 60 FPS, and had they instead offered a more nuanced, 1080p on medium details, maybe high or ultra for older titles, and in some cases, you know what, 4K upscaling looks pretty darn good. I wouldn't even have to be talking about this. But now I have to go spelunking for what the heck Valve was talking about. And it seems like, for newer titles, what they meant was low settings with FSR set as low as ultra performance, which means we are upscaling from a mere 720p base resolution all the way to 4K Ultra HD. At these settings, all right, sure, all 5 of our games did hit averages that are comfortably above 60 FPS, but at these settings, all 5 of our games also looked pretty ugly. And there's more bad news. Even with 28 ray tracing cores, RT is pretty much a non-starter on this thing. This is true both for games where it's an option, like Cyberpunk, where we saw an average of 15 FPS at 1080p Ultra, and especially true for games that force its usage, like Indiana Jones or Doom the Dark Ages, where only one configuration we tested managed to consistently stay above 60 FPS. And that was the handheld one, right?
Yep.
Yikes. To be clear, it's not the end of the world today, but whether you love ray tracing or hate it, there will be more titles in the future that will require hardware support for it, and the Steam Machine just plain doesn't have the horses. Once again, I'd love to be proven wrong here. Valve did contact us hours before recording this to say they are aiming to patch it, but guys, it's a 7600M GPU. There is no path that I can trace that will lead to acceptable performance on this hardware, especially in light of your unqualified claims of 4K 60 FPS, which still wouldn't be a huge problem if it wasn't for the big white elephant in the room, the PlayStation 5. On paper, the Steam Machine and the PS5 trade blows.
It's not that big.
In real life, I'm sorry, Valve, but it just doesn't quite seem to work out that way. Now, I do have a disclaimer here. The PS5 doesn't support any kind of frame time analysis, so any numbers we give you guys are going to be kind of rough and tumble ad hoc. We explain the methodology, by the way, of both this test and the rest in our accompanying labs article. We'll have that link down below. But anyway, in God of War Ragnarok, the base PS5, which upscales from 1440p to 4K, was chilling around 75 to 78 FPS. Meanwhile, in the same scene, the Steam Machine, with mostly medium settings and FSR set to quality, landed in the 60 to 63 range.
Okay, I just have one question about that, because, okay, again, I just find that in specific, when a game is made specifically like for a console, don't you guys think it could also mean that it could be that the port to PC of that game doesn't run as well as the PlayStation port, because the PlayStation, it was made for the PlayStation? Does it make sense? I wonder if they will also compare with a game that runs on both, but it wasn't specifically made for the PlayStation. Because I feel like that is probably a more fair comparison, and probably something that will happen more often. But that's the only thing that came in my mind.
This isn't the end of the world. We actually found that upscaling was hampering our performance more than we expected, and at 1440p native, we were able to break 70 FPS, even with our details turned up. But what it isn't is a win. With that said, choosing the right games and enabling variable refresh rate is going to help to mitigate some choppiness, and you can absolutely have a really solid gaming experience on this box. Also, as these things go out in the wild, I do expect Valve's Verified for Steam Machine program to incentivize developers to optimize for this hardware specifically. It's just that you got to keep your expectations in check. It's not magically going to get way faster. Coming back to good news though, the Steam Machine's download speeds are solid. We saw close to full gigabit speeds over a wire, and a little less than half of that via Wi-Fi 6E. That's partially probably thanks to Valve's 4 dedicated antennas in this box, 2 for Wi-Fi, 1 for Bluetooth, and 1 for Steam controllers. And we also saw an average power draw of just 175 watts under heavy load, with a mere 66 watts for lighter games. That contributes to a cool, quiet experience with the Steam Machine, landing right in line with the PS5 for acoustics and
I'm not going to talk about the PlayStation 5 because the PlayStation 5 doesn't have this problem, but I remember having a PlayStation 4 Pro that was probably the loudest thing and the thing that caused the most heat I ever owned in my house. That thing was loud. It sounded like a fucking plane.
averaging just 68 and 66 degrees across our CPU and GPU respectively. Good job, Valve.
Yeah.
And good job making this such a repairable and serviceable machine. Not only can the Steam Machine be easily opened up, including the ability to upgrade both the RAM and SSD, but Valve has once again partnered with iFixit to make guides and replacement parts available. Absolutely amazing.
Wait, that's actually a good deal. Because, you know, making parts available, that's something that... How is it fixing a console? Because I did have one console that didn't work well for me, but luckily I could just return it and get another one. Not possible. Because repairing is a big deal. And that's something that people should care for more. Especially because when, like... whole electronics are becoming more and more expensive, being able to repair, and maybe not only repair, but imagine if you could upgrade it in the future instead of replacing the whole thing. Wouldn't it be sick? Yeah.
Maybe consider an LTT precision screwdriver if you ever need to make any upgrades or repairs. It's got all the bits you need and a convenient magnetic parts tray that's included in the lid, lttstore.com. Another highlight is Valve's open approach to peripherals. I mean, can you imagine Nintendo just allowing any old thing to be plugged into their precious gaming machine? Meanwhile, in Valve land, the Steam Machine played nicely with every mouse, keyboard, or headset that we plugged into it, including random Bluetooth accessories. One thing of note is that
That's one of my biggest beef with consoles. Okay. I need to calm down, okay? A mouse and a keyboard is just a fucking USB. Why I cannot plug a mouse and a keyboard into a fucking console and have it fucking work? Why? God's sake, why? Why? I cannot just play Baldur's Gate on a console with a mouse and keyboard. Why? It works with Xbox? That's good. I like that. It's especially frustrating when it doesn't, because I remember when I was a kid, okay? And again, I know that there are ways to make this work, but it requires you to have, like, I could make a dance pad work on any console. I made a dance pad work on the Nintendo Switch and also on the PlayStation 5 and so on whatsoever. If you really try and if you pay for extra equipment, you can get anything to work. But work well is also a question. It's not really ideal. But the point is, what makes me angry about this being an issue is that I remember when I was a kid and my dad bought the first PlayStation 1, the big square one, and it fucking had a fucking mouse! So what's the excuse that in 2026 we can't have a mouse on consoles by default? Anyways.
Some of our audio accessories were a little quieter than usual on the Steam Machine, even with the volume maxed, but again, this feels like one of those, don't worry, Valve's gonna fix that things. Bringing us finally to something Valve couldn't fix, the detail you've all been waiting for. You can order your Steam Machine today, and it will cost $1,050 US for the 512 gig storage version and $1,350 for the 2 terabyte. I think we better
My
talk about
God!
this. Is that reasonable?
It is reasonable in this current market conditions, but it is.
You sound like you're being held hostage.
I mean, Valve was held hostage by the parts makers.
So reasonable, yes, but like, is it too high?
Yes.
And that's a tough thing. I think it's fair to say that both of those things are true.
Yes.
Based on the costs that Valve is seeing, and also based on other options that are available in the market, it can be both reasonably priced and still too high.
I was really hoping that this was going to bring PC gaming to the mainstream living room, that I could pitch all my friends and be like, oh, get a Steam machine, it's so cool. But this is a premium price, even though I wouldn't say it's a premium product.
And in fairness to Valve, they did telegraph this. They were explicit when I came down there for the reveal that it was not going to be subsidized by the 30% cut that they're going to take on games, because they have no guarantee that people are actually going to run SteamOS on this or buy any games. And the PS5 is such a giant, even bigger elephant in the room than I even said before. The fact that you can still, even at the increased price, buy a PS5 for $600 US or a PS5 Pro, which is a much more powerful machine for...
Okay. Yeah. I see the point, but there's one big but. The game prices. Steam has regional pricing, and if you live in a place like, for example, Brazil, affording a full-priced console game is a lot of fucking money for each single game. If you live in a country, it's too much, you know? It's way too much. And, you know, but even then, I find that the biggest problem with this is not that we are comparing it with consoles, because I find that consoles, they have a lot of, dumb bullshit that makes things on console more expensive. Exclusives, you have to pay for the internet, you have to pay for the online, there is a subscription here and there. Even beyond all this, if we're not comparing the Steam machine with consoles, then you're comparing it with PCs. And if you're comparing it with PCs, and if you go shop for used parts, and if you go build a computer out of used parts that you found online, you can probably make something much cheaper than the Steam machine that's just as good, if not better. Yeah? So, in other words, the Steam machine, you would be paying a higher price for the convenience to not have to do the work yourself. Yes, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah.
900.
And then you'd still have money left over for your first year of PS Plus.
And both of those PS5s include a controller too, so that's going to cover almost another year. With that said, if you're keeping it for a long time, I mean, let's talk TCO. That's a term that not everybody's familiar with outside of like business or the data center. It's total cost of ownership. It often gets said that on the PC side, pricing of games is a huge boon compared to consoles, but you actually opened my eyes to the PlayStation Store having a lot of deals.
There was a few weeks ago where there wasn't a sale going on and people freaked out. So I think there's sort of a myth around Steam sales being way better than console, but I think we've balanced out. That being said, you can play online games for free.
Yeah, but they're not mentioning that Nintendo is probably the biggest console out there, and it's more likely for them to sell your mom on their store naked than giving you decent sales. So it's not only PlayStation that's relevant.
Free
Right.
on a Steam machine and on a PlayStation, you're going to be spending $110 a year.
That is brutal.
And again, this is also not taking consideration if you're from a country that has regional pricing, because consoles, they don't have regional pricing. On Steam, a lot of games, they do have regional pricing. It's up more to the devs. It's an option to the devs. So games in general on console, they're always more expensive. So I don't know. I just find this argument to be a little bit sketchy, personally. Anyways.
A lot of money. That's a game and a half.
Another big benefit, though, I mean, we touched on this, but accessory support. Nintendo's not the only one that keeps things locked down with respect to plugging things into their consoles. I mean, for years, entire brands that make gaming headsets, their only reason for existing at all was that they managed to get the license to produce compatible Xbox gaming headsets.
Shout out Turtle Beach.
They were awful audio quality. Like, had no reason for existing other than licensing.
Even controllers, we're living through a renaissance in the PC space, but to find something good for the PlayStation 5 that has back paddles for less than $200, so impossible.
Yeah, we're actually, shout out David's upcoming video. We're doing a modding video on the stock DualSense to add paddles to it.
So excited.
Gonna be pretty freaking cool. I don't even know if I care about bringing this up, but there is one thing the PS5 does that the Steam Machine for now doesn't, and that's VR.
Yeah, I'm not a big VR guy.
I don't think most PlayStation gamers are right now.
No.
I feel like VR is VR is very niche, and yeah, I don't know if it's relevant to the talk.
They have like, what, 12 games?
I don't think there will ever be
Yeah.
another PSVR.
No. I mean, the other white elephant in the room is the custom PC you build in a white case. Literally tomorrow, we have a video coming out where we build a PC for the price of the Steam Machine to compare performance.
I think we're going to see better value. I think we're going to see better upgradability and serviceability. We're going to see better performance.
We're gonna have to talk about it tomorrow.
I know I shouldn't be that surprised, but the performance really was a downer for me.
I think if they hadn't made the 4K 60 promise, it would be a little less painful.
Or if they had left the door open for Steam Machine Pro. Like if I knew there was going to be something based on a 9070 coming that would be the legitimate 4K machine, then I think we'd be having a really different conversation.
Or eGPU support, maybe some way to upgrade more than just the RAM and SSD.
Okay, we've spent a lot of time harping on the price, but what would be the right price? What's the no hesitation, I'd buy one tomorrow price?
Me, or I recommend to people?
You recommend.
$800, I think, is reasonable. It's slightly worse performance than a console, but it has so much more openness and features that I think balances out that value.
Yeah, I mean, we barely even touched on the fact that you can use it as a full-fledged desktop PC. Like, they have done a lot of work, not just on the big picture gaming aspect of SteamOS. I'm actually planning to, once we get the real Steam Machine back from labs, throw it in my backpack and use it as my daily driver machine for a month.
Oh, that's pretty fun.
Yeah. So I'll have to do everything, gaming and work on it. And it's actually portable enough that you just could. Portable.
Portal. You want to hear something that's really sad?
I do.
I asked them specifically, what was the original price point in mind for the Steam Machine? And they're like, I can't give you that, but if you look at the price increase of the Steam Deck, that tells you what we were the targeting for, and that's about a $200 price increase. So we would have hit our price if it wasn't.
The RAM apocalypse. Do you think it's still going to sell anyway?
It'll sell a certain amount to the Valve diehards. I think that there's enough people out there that are like, I believe in this, I want to support this. I don't think it's going to cross into the mainstream, even to the level of the Steam Deck. I think the Steam Deck's greatest strength was that it was a really slick console-like experience for a really aggressive price, and this is not an aggressive price. This is
You know what I have been thinking while they were talking about this? What about me? If I was going to pick between buying right now a console that's 6 years old, because the other thing that people are not taking consideration is that how expensive it would be a PlayStation 6 if it was releasing this year. You know, it would probably be quite pricey. But anyways, that's not what's relevant. I I actually don't know the answer to this, but what I have been thinking is I do have a PlayStation, I do have a Nintendo Switch, and both my PlayStation and my Nintendo Switch, because I have a PC, I never feel the need to really use them. I play so many different games, and I wonder if me playing the games that I play and the games that I like, would I prefer, in spite of the better performance, take a console, but then maybe not being able to play a lot of games that I'm used to playing on PC? For that, I don't know if I would want to do that trade. I personally don't know the answer to this question, but again, I really like the number of different games and how many different games are there for me as a choice on PC. You know, so I think I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think I would take the quality hit just to have the variety of choice, to playing so many different games. You know, but the problem is, okay, the problem is, and I feel like that's their greatest challenge, is that for the people who have never played PC and console games as much as I have, how the fuck would they ever be able to make this decision? Because I find that overall, if somebody is just wanting to get into games, they will probably hear about a lot of games that are console exclusives and probably end up buying a Nintendo Switch. When, as somebody who plays games for a living and have been playing games since I'm on diapers, I think that I would hands down always pick the PC. Like, when you don't have the knowledge of the market and what you can get from different platforms, I feel like marketing just favors consoles for the people who are not insiders in the information of games in general. Does that make sense? So while, as somebody that understands all the games that I can get on PC, I feel like most general audience wouldn't be able to understand that difference. And that is probably what is going to hurt them the most. I don't think ultimately that it's harder to care that you would be losing so much choice and variety of games when you never had that choice and that freedom in the first place. So those people, they don't even know what they're missing out, and they can live their lives happily without ever realizing what they're missing out. If you'd never tasted the water on the other side, but as somebody who has tasted the grass and the weather on the other side, I don't know if I'm willing to lose that freedom. Does that make sense? So it's a very complicated thing, because that makes them a lot less likely to being able to sell this at this price to the general public. Unless if somebody starts marketing indie games better. You know, it could be, especially since a lot of like AAA games are maybe disappointing to people nowadays because expectations are high, or because sometimes the production of those games are not the same like they once were. I do believe that we're heading towards an era of gaming that's going to value indie games more than before, because I find that a good game can literally come from anywhere. It can be a single person making that game, and that game will turn out to be amazing, you know? So I do believe that at the time that we are right now, there can be a lot of indie games that can shine, and could be that people are more open to trying games that, you know, everyone has heard about, or at least I hope so, because there's a lot of creative things. But there is also the money limitation. Like, for example, could an indie game make a game like Baldur's Gate 3? No, because it takes a lot of money. You know, a lot of money. So there are some types of games that only companies with a lot of money can achieve. But even those companies with a lot of money, it's not necessarily a guarantee they will make games good. So I don't know. It all depends on how people will see indie games and their appeal to indie games. And I don't know. Only time will tell.
Is a enthusiast price.
I hate the words you're saying, but I think I accept.
Also, love the Remora's indies means no publisher. Yes, I understand that as a concept, and you know, at the root. So you could say by the definition that you're saying that Baldur's Gate 3 is an indie game, but I find that comparing Baldur's Gate 3 with something like Undertale, while both are great games, to be almost silly when it comes to production. So saying that both indie games are the same, it's disingenuous. That's why, while by the theory of the world, you could claim that Baldur's Gate 3 is an indie game, it's for the same reason why, even though Expedition 33 is not, is, I guess, not self-published, but they had less people because they had some contractors working for them. They had Andy Serkis in the voice cast. I also don't find that an indie game could have a well-known, renowned actor as their main cast of a game. That's just... I also don't think it makes sense to call Expedition 33 or Baldur's Gate an indie game. It's just like... it feels odd.
For now, if RAM pricing were to normalize, I suspect mostly good guy Valve would make adjustments to the pricing. I can just also understand their perspective that they can't just operate this thing at a loss. And
Do you think scalpers are still gonna jump all over this thing?
yeah.
And then I hope they get stuck with it forever.
One thing I would never hope they get stuck with is a sponsor like dbrand. They've done everything to me, from wasting my time to making me stick my arm in a terrible, horrible trap. But you gotta give them credit where it's due. They really knocked it out of the park with this one. It could have just been a skin, but no. They put in the extra effort, and manufacturing something this detailed at this scale is more complicated than you guys probably think. All you gotta do is use the included embedded Allen key to pop the back panel off, and then start assembling your Steam machine inside the case. And once you've got the case open, dbrand didn't miss any details here. They added these rubber strips on the inside to make sure that your machine gets that extra bit of padding, not to mention is oh so satisfying to slide in. Once the machine's in, you just pop the backplate back on.
Was that porn music?
Well, like David said, our Steam machine is in B-roll right now. The point is, boom, companion cube. And it's got a few other notable features. It's got removable port covers, a removable front panel with a gap to show off the LED strip, and a mechanical button pass-through so you can hit the power switch. In terms of intake and exhaust, the bottom is fully open, and on the backside, you've got an unobstructed exhaust vent with full access to all of the I/O. And if you're worried about the volume of air that's coming in from the bottom, you can actually reverse the little rubber feet to make it stand just a little bit taller. I need dbrand to make one of those for me.
Hey!
I imagine Portal fans are gonna absolutely love this one, even the ones who aren't buying a Steam machine right away. So guys, make sure that you head over to shortlinus.com and be one of the first to reserve yours. Thanks for watching this video.
I think this was a good video, but I'm surprised that they're not trying to sell a PlayStation 5 case instead. I am honestly a little bit like sad that the Steam Cube is not more accessible to people, because I kind of really wish more people, because there was a of console gamers out there. And I kind of wish that the Steam Cube could make PC gaming more open to the public, you know, to get more people to interact with it and try the wonders and the variety that you can have when it comes to PC gaming. And that, I guess, like, that was like my biggest hope, especially because I find that a lot of times, and there is a lot of like habits that the console industry can have that I find that's kind of like counterproductive for customers. So to me, that's the most heartbreaking thing, because I feel like with prices like this, it's a little bit harder for them to achieve what I was hoping they could achieve. That's just having more people trying PC games, you know? Yeah? Does it make sense? But I hope it does well enough for them to be willing to invest more in this and keep working their minds into bringing something like this, into trying to make PC gaming more mainstream. Because I feel like there's a lot of cool games out there that would be nice if more people got to try them. Yeah? Yeah? Will you guys be getting one? No, no judgment, just out of curiosity. It's weird how good the Steam Deck was compared to this. Coronite, yeah, but at the same time, again, I feel like maybe this is the kind of thing that is better to wait a bit before we make a proper, you know, conclusion to what things will be. I don't know. Let's see what happens when things come out and people actually start testing it and using it, you know. It's gonna be interesting to see. Just, you know, maybe the reception will be different. I don't know. It's hard to predict. Guys, with this in mind, I should probably go rest. Thank you guys so much for watching with me. Yeah? Yep? I resty. Thank you guys. Bye. Have a good night. Dream of Boo. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you. See you guys tomorrow. May the bunnies be with you. Boo already had his snacky. Yeah.